Dawn broke over eastern Ukraine, but not the kind that warms the soul. It came cold, metallic, and heavy with static. On the morning of October 16, 2025, the horizon glowed not with sunrise, but with the faint infrared shimmer of drones scanning the ground below. Somewhere between Malanivka and Shakov, a Russian armored column 22 vehicles strong was on the move. Tanks, infantry, fighting vehicles, command trucks, a spearhead of steel rolling through silence. They believed they were invisible. They were not. What they couldn't see was the invisible web stretched above them, satellites, reconnaissance, UAVs, and encrypted radio networks, all feeding real-time data to Ukrainian control screens miles away. Every movement, every engine flare, every metallic heartbeat was being tracked. This wasn't a battlefield anymore. It was a digital grid, alive, precise, and merciless. The convoy advanced at 40 kilometers per hour, steady, confident, mechanical. These soldiers were trained for terrain and artillery, but not for algorithms. Not for the kind of war where you don't see your enemy, only the crosshairs on a thermal feed. From 9 kilometers southwest, a Fourier reconnaissance drone locked onto the formation. Its FLIR sensors painted the convoy in blazing orange, the T-72 B-3 tanks burning brightest, the fuel trucks pulsing like beating hearts. That data streamed live to the Forward Artillery Command Center, where the Azov Brigade was waiting, hands poised, breath held. And that's when the clock started ticking. The ambush had been rehearsed for days, a 3-layer kill chain of artillery directional mines and kamikaze FPV drones. Every meter of road between Malanivka and Shakov had been plotted, every patch of ground tagged for destruction. This was not chaos, it was choreography. This is what modern war looks like now. No bugles, no shouting, no smoke-filled heroics. Just numbers, coordinates, and cold precision. Inside a dimly lit command trailer, a Ukrainian officer's finger hovered over a single key, waiting for one indicator to turn green. When it did, an encrypted command would ripple through the network, and the valley ahead would turn into fire. At that moment, 22 vehicles, tanks, troop carriers, repair trucks were driving straight into history. Within the next 10 minutes, a strike combining M270 GMLRS, PTKM-1R anti-tank mines, and FPV suicide drones would wipe the formation from existence. What began as a resupply mission would end as a case study, one that military academies across the world would dissect for years. But this story is more than tactics, it's transformation. The war in Ukraine has become a brutal laboratory for the future of warfare, a place where outdated armor meets next-generation intelligence, where centuries of battlefield instinct collide with milliseconds of machine calculation. For the United States and NATO, this ambush is more than a success story, it's validation. The precision systems, the data link networks, the GMLRS rockets, the UAV integration, these are Western-born technologies fielded and refined by American allies. The 10-minute engagement near Shakov was not just a Ukrainian victory, it was proof that the doctrines of the West can shatter mass with information. The Russians rolled forward expecting another day of war. Instead, they drove into a digital trap, an invisible cage woven from timing data and discipline. This isn't a tale of luck or heroism, it's a lesson in systems warfare, a story that asks one question every strategist should fear. What happens when a smaller force fights not as an army, but as a network? In the next 10 minutes of this analysis, we'll step inside that operation from the first drone shadow to the final explosion. You'll see how Ukrainian recon teams, artillery controllers, and FPV operators synchronized in perfect tempo to dismantle a column 3 times their weight in steel. And we'll explore what this means for the future of war, how America's investment in data precision and allied coordination may already be rewriting the battlefield. Don't just watch, think. If military truth and clarity matter to you, stay with us. Like, share, subscribe, and let your voice be part of this conversation. Because what happened that morning near Shakov wasn't just a battle, it was a blueprint, a 10-minute glimpse into the future of warfare. At 7:50 a.m. on October 16, 2025, the Russian armored column began to roll out of the Malanivka area. 22 armored vehicles moved as one T-72 B-3 tanks, BMP-2 and BMP-3 infantry fighting vehicles, BRDM-2 recon cars, Ural 4320 ammunition trucks, and the vital BRM-1K command vehicles that carried the heart of their communications. Their mission to reach Shakov, resupply an artillery cluster, positioned to support an assault toward Davila, and sustain Russian operations for at least 3 days. But from the very first turn, their every movement was being watched. 9 kilometers away, a Furia UAV hovered silently above the ridgeline. Its FLIR sensors scanned each vehicle, identifying the command nodes, fuel carriers, and ammunition trucks. Through encrypted data links, the reconnaissance feed streamed in real time to the Forward Artillery Command Center. There, Ukrainian officers traced the column's formation, lead group, center group, rear group, and began synchronizing fire solutions. On-screen colored markers blinked: 6 lead vehicles, 8 center units, 8 rear elements. Heat maps pulsed like veins in a body soon to be dissected. To the Azov Brigade's commander, the image wasn't a convoy, it was anatomy. Each truck a lung, each tank a heart, and he was about to stop them all. The Ukrainian plan had 3 layers. The first, precision artillery ready to strike the moment the convoy entered the kill zone. The second, PTKM-R and TM-62 anti-tank mines remotely triggered to block escape lanes. The third, FPV kamikaze drones, each fitted with a 3-kilogram penetrator warhead, programmed to dive straight into exposed command or fuel nodes. At 8:00 a.m., the Furia drone reported that the convoy had entered the intersection north of Shakov. The lead BMP-2 accelerated. 2 T-72B3s followed 35 meters apart. The BRM-1K command vehicle rolled into the clearing, exactly the point Ukrainian recon teams had marked 3 days earlier. In the command center, one encrypted command flashed across the monitor: Go Alpha. Confirm grid GR6229. Fire 1. Seconds later, the roar of M270 GMLRS launchers broke the quiet plains behind Novopil. A salvo of M30A1 cluster warheads screamed into the sky, each rocket pre-programmed to detonate 25 meters above the target zone. 23 seconds later, the air burst. The kill zone lit up like a second sunrise. Fragments rained down in a steel storm. One BMP-2 took a direct hit. Its turret tore loose. Another BMP-3 lost its track and skidded sideways into the ditch. A T-72B3 struck by a fragment cluster spun into the tree line, its crew abandoning through the hatches. In under 40 seconds, the formation collapsed. Vehicles in the rear slammed brakes, others veered into the open fields, desperate to escape. But the moment order broke, Ukrainian engineers triggered the second layer. A PTKM-1R mine detonated under an Ural 4320 ammunition truck. The rear axle vaporized. 120 millimeters of shells spilled out like marbles of death. The secondary explosions sent a shockwave backward through the convoy. The BRM-1K command vehicle behind it caught a heavy fragment to its radio mast communication, severed it, lurched into the mud, smoking blind. Another Ural swerved off course and bogged down. An MTLB towing a repair trailer tried to pull it free, but the mud and panic swallowed them both. And then came the third layer, the vultures. At 8:10 a.m., 3 FPV kamikaze drones of the Azov Brigade lifted off from concealed launch pads 2 kilometers north of Shakov. Guided by the Furia's thermal feed, they approached at 130 km/h, flying just meters above the ground. The first slammed directly into the already crippled BRM-1K, detonating inside its communication suite. The explosion erased the command node in an instant. The second drone curved wide, locked onto a Kamaz fuel truck, and punched through the tank compartment. The resulting fireball was so intense that even the Furia's infrared lens saturated white. The third drone, banking in from the west, targeted a BMP-2, whose turret was still turning in confusion. The strike hit the drive cluster, a precise shot that disabled the gun and detonated the onboard ammunition. From the first rocket to the last drone, impact 6 minutes and 41 seconds. There was no counterfire, no air defense response, no electronic warfare interference, just silence broken by secondary detonations as fuel and shells continued to burn. By 8:20 a.m., the ambush zone was a graveyard. 9 armored vehicles destroyed, 4 immobilized, 4 abandoned, 4 unaccounted for. At 8:50 a.m., Ukrainian ground teams advanced, documenting the aftermath with helmet cams and low-altitude reconnaissance drones. The footage was haunting: a T-72 tilted in a crater, its turret at a grotesque angle, a BMP-3 charred beyond recognition, the shattered frame of a BRM-1K still smoking. The Malinivka-Shakov corridor was no longer a road, it was a warning. What had once been Russia's main supply artery for the Shakov-Devilla offensive was now impassable. Fuel, ammunition, and repair parts that should have sustained frontline units for 72 hours had vanished in a single orchestrated strike. In the aftermath, Russian artillery in the Mikhailsky sector fired 36% fewer shells over the next 2 days. Assault plans were canceled, supply chains rerouted, and morale cracked. The battlefield had shifted not through manpower or firepower, but through timing, precision, and patience. And in those 10 minutes of destruction, the world saw something profound: that in modern war, dominance no longer belongs to whoever has the most tanks. It belongs to whoever owns the data. By mid-morning on October 16, 2025, the smoke over Shakov still hung low. The wreckage burned slow, the black columns of diesel fire twisting into a sky now thick with electromagnetic haze. What had started as a logistical maneuver ended as a catastrophic systems failure. For the Russian command, the destruction of the Malinivka-Shakov convoy wasn't just a tactical loss. It was the severing of operational tempo, the rhythm that keeps a front alive. Dozens of tons of ammunition, 21,000 liters of diesel, and a vital command and control suite had vanished in minutes. Without those lifelines, the Shakov-Devilla axis fell silent. Tanks could no longer move. Guns could no longer fire. Inside the Ukrainian Forward Operations Center, the silence on Russian radio bands confirmed success. But this was more than victory, it was revelation. The ambush had proven that information dominance, not sheer power, could fracture a war machine from within. The core principle was timing. Everything had aligned within seconds: the Furia drone's visual feed, M270 GMLRS salvo timing, PTKM-1R mine triggers, and the final FPV drone wave. It was a perfect fusion of reconnaissance, electronic warfare, and artillery synchronization, a demonstration of how a smaller force could paralyze a larger one through connectivity. Analysts at the Ukrainian General Staff later called it a kinetic symphony, each asset playing its role at the exact second of opportunity. The lesson was chilling: no formation, no matter how armored, can survive if its movements are predictable in the digital battlespace. Across Russian channels, panic spread. Unit logs from Mikhailsky recorded emergency transmissions, requests for air cover for engineers for new supply routes. But no help arrived. Electronic warfare units had failed to detect the Furia. The short-range air defense SHORAD systems had not even powered on. The ambush wasn't a battle, it was an execution. By noon, Russian logisticians ordered a total freeze on convoy movements through Malinivka. Overnight, the corridor was reclassified Zone Red, extreme risk. Future convoys were rerouted through Novodonki, a detour that turned a 2-hour transit into a 6-hour grind. Supply columns could no longer travel in groups of 20. They were split into packets of 4 or 5 trucks. That measure, meant to reduce exposure, only created congestion and chaos. The Azov Brigade had done what no artillery barrage alone could accomplish. It cracked the supply spine of an entire offensive. Within 48 hours, the Russian Western Mechanized Brigade canceled its planned push toward Devilla, not for lack of manpower, but because its guns had gone dry. For Ukraine, the ambush wasn't just revenge or defense, it was a message transmitted loud and clear. You can have tanks, you can have missiles, but if you can't protect your logistics, you have already lost the future. And as the last fires died near Shakov, one truth echoed in every analysis cell from Kyiv to Washington. The war had entered a new age, an age where data strikes harder than steel. By October 17, 2025, the battlefield was quiet, but the echo of Shakov had already reached far beyond the Donbass plains. Inside the war rooms of Kyiv, Warsaw, Berlin, and Washington, D.C., analysts replayed the footage again and again: the Furia drone's tracking feed, the plume of the M270 GMLRS launched the precision strikes of the FPV kamikaze drones. To the naked eye, it was 10 minutes of destruction. To the strategists of NATO, it was 10 years of doctrine rewritten in real time. For Ukraine, the success of the Malinivka-Shakov ambush validated what Western advisors had quietly preached since 2022, that information fusion could offset firepower imbalance. With limited air superiority, Ukraine had achieved what airstrikes once promised: deep interdiction of enemy logistics by combining UAV reconnaissance, precision artillery, and real-time target acquisition. It wasn't luck. It was American-style networked warfare executed by local hands. In Pentagon briefing rooms, senior officers compared the event to early Operation Desert Storm kill chains, where GPS data links and joint fires first converged to paralyze armored formations. But this was different. The Shakov ambush had been conducted under electronic pressure without full-spectrum dominance. It proved that even in a contested sky, the right blend of software, sensors, and soldier initiative could generate near-perfect results. Reports from U.S. European Command EUCOM described it as a textbook asymmetric strike, the kind of precision ambush that future small states might replicate when facing numerically superior foes. For American strategists, it was both validation and warning. Validation that Western training and systems integration worked. Warning that the same digital precision could one day be turned against them. Across Russia, the psychological shock was palpable. Telegram channels filled with images of charred vehicles and shattered tracks. Opposition media called it 10 minutes in Ukrainian hell. The Kremlin's Ministry of Defense issued denials, but satellite imagery told the truth: a supply column erased a corridor abandoned. In NATO's Allied Transformation Command, officers noted a deeper consequence: fear. Not fear of loss, but of vulnerability. The Malinivka-Shakov strike demonstrated that even a modern army could be digitally cornered and destroyed without ever seeing its attacker. For commanders trained in 20th century doctrine, it was a sobering realization: the age of armored dominance was closing fast. Yet amid the ashes, Western analysts saw hope. The Shakov ambush became a symbol of what smaller democracies could achieve with the right tools, and what American alliance power could enable. The technologies that made it possible: GMLRS warheads, FLIR targeting, encrypted satellite uplinks, were all part of a defense ecosystem that extended far beyond Ukraine. From London to Tampa, from Ramstein to Fort Bragg, the message was clear: the future of warfare will not be decided by mass, but by mastery of networks, timing, and trust. In the days following the Shakov ambush, the battlefield changed, but not only for Russia. It changed for everyone watching. The Malinivka-Shakov corridor, once a lifeline of the Eastern Front, became a cautionary tale engraved in modern military doctrine. For Ukraine, it proved that precision, patience, and data could break the back of a stronger enemy. For NATO and the United States, it reaffirmed the truth of 21st century war. The nation that masters integration between soldier, sensor, and strike will always hold the advantage. No tank platoon, no missile brigade can outrun information. For Russia, the loss forced a costly adaptation. Convoys were split routes, lengthened defenses, diluted. Tempo collapsed. Every shell, every liter of fuel now traveled under fear. And in modern warfare, fear is the slowest logistics of all. But beneath the smoke, a new strategic order is emerging, one where Allied intelligence networks, UAV coordination, and precision fires decide not just battles but balance. The Battle of Shakov is over, but the message it sends endures in this age of data, and drones' courage alone is not enough. Victory belongs to those who understand the invisible battlefield. If you believe that understanding power is the first step toward preserving peace, like, share, and tell us what this ambush means to you. Because the next chapter, the fight for digital dominance, has only just begun.